the associate publisher of PropTalk Magazine. Joining you now live from my living room. I'm just realizing now I'm looking behind me going, I probably should have cleaned up before I went live, but actually it doesn't look any different than any other live event we've done. So anyhow, welcome. Thanks for joining us for another PropTalk Live. I'll be bringing on Kaylee and our guest Tom Hale here in a minute. Tonight's talk is on the Intracoastal Waterway. Now, this has actually been on my bucket list for a long time, and it's one of those things that a lot of people talk about. If you're not really interested in doing the Great Loop or that sort of thing, just doing the ICW is a big venture in itself. But before we get there, we got to do some business here. And first up, that is just thank our sponsor. And it's really no coincidence that Pocket Yacht is our sponsor tonight. Pocket Yacht, if you don't know, they actually sell the Ranger tugs and the cutwater boats. If you haven't seen these boats, you really need to check them out. They're not these huge, grandiose yachts, but they are packed full of features. It is the most room and really some of the most the coolest engineering I've seen on a boat. And if you ever get a chance, please check one of them out because they're just a really, really neat boat. And just speaking of where you can see it, actually, they are on the cover of the current issue of PropTalk Magazine. Wow, what a coincidence. What you can do, though, is go and read our digital issue because we have a review of this brand new Ranger tug, the R25. This is a great boat. If I were going down the ICW, I would really want to be on this boat. It's really comfortable. It's a lot of fun. And it just seems like the perfect boat to do this kind of trip with. So anyway, go to proptalk.com. You'll see this cover up on the screen. You can click on that. That takes you to our digital issue, which is a flip book. Flip through it, cover to cover, and take a look. It's out there right now. And if you have any questions about this stuff while we go, look to your right, or excuse me, it's my right. If you have any questions while we go through this talk, ask them here in the comments section on Facebook, and we'll make sure we get them in front of Kaylee and Tom. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Kaylee on here. And here she comes. Hey, Kaylee.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. Now, I just remembered, I forgot to remind folks at home. So we experienced a little technical difficulty in the beginning with Tom. You'll be able to see him, but we have him, his audio is via cell phone, actually via Kaylee's phone. And I think that should suffice. We can hear him pretty well. And if anything goes wrong, forgive us, technology, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really looking forward to hearing what Tom has to say about this because he has a lot of experience and he's got some great photos to share with us as well. So I'm going to bow out and I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Well, thank you, Chris. So we, over the years, we've written about the ICW a lot, Chesapeake Bay cruisers and their experiences, and we always get a lot of questions about what it actually takes to make a trip like this happen. And I can't think of anyone better to help us answer that question than Tom Hale, who has lived aboard for 11 years and transited the ICW 14 times. So hello, Tom.
Hey, Kaylee.
How's it going?
It's going great. I don't know if you can see this. Aurora decided she wanted to make an appearance tonight.
Oh, no, I can't see her. Tilt your screen down just a little bit.
Can you see the deal?
No, I can't see. Oh, wait, no, I see her
right.
off to your left.
Anyway, it's not why we're here.
So, Tom, so where are you talking to us today? Where are you at?
We are in, actually, we're way up the St. Johns River in Florida, near Orlando. We're in a freshwater lake 120 miles upriver from Jacksonville.
Awesome. So you've lived aboard 11 years, and was that all on the same boat?
Yes. We moved aboard May 9th, 2009. And at the time, the boat was delivered in Maryland, but we were living in Virginia.
And what type of boat is that in the photo?
I'm sorry, we live on a Helmsman 38 trawler.
Gotcha.
We wanted a boat that was manageable for two people, manageable by one person if necessary. but something with lots of interior room because we knew we'd be living aboard in the winter in ice and snow, and we'd also be living aboard in the tropics. We wanted something that would open up, and a trawler, in our mind, is a better solution for us than a sailboat.
Yeah, that makes sense. So if someone was looking at boats with the hopes of going down the ICW, what are some characteristics that they would like to, that they should keep in mind?
Well, that's a great question, Kaylee. The first thing to remember is the boat you have is the boat to go. All right? You don't need anything special. That being said, theoretically, the bridges will give you 65 feet of clearance. Sometimes you might have to wait for a little low tide to get there, but 65 feet and anything over 6 feet of draft means you're going to have to wait in some spots for some tidal help. But beyond that, you will probably be motoring a lot, although we passed a boat that was rowing up the ICW in Georgia a few years ago, and the next day we passed him again. And the next day we passed him again. So he'd obviously passed us 3 times rowing up in a small sailboat. If the wind was behind him, he had to jib up. So my point is, it doesn't take anything special, just a sense of adventure.
Awesome. So if someone is, when they're planning a trip, could you tell us a little bit about how you budget both your timeline and also financially?
Sure. Those are 2 very good questions. Let's start with the easy one. Let's talk about the timeline. Depending on what cruising speed you go, most boats are going to be going somewhere between 5.5 and 8 knots. So on a 1,200-mile trip, you're really going to need to budget at least 6 weeks. And the biggest mistake that people make is trying to do it too quickly, particularly the first time. So you need to go slow and enjoy it, and then slow down some more. We average on, including stops and sightseeing, about 37 miles a day. So start early and get to Florida before the days get too short. Now, as far as money, everybody's got a different, budget. What I would advise you is you'll have to stop and get water and a pump out occasionally. Probably need to stop for some food. And when the weather's nasty, remember you're probably going south in October and November when the days are short. If the weather's nasty, you're going to want to stop somewhere too. And it's more fun to be tied up in a marina in nasty weather than to be anchored in a small creek. So you'll want to go to marinas. How often? I would say at least one night a week. I figure I'm paying about $2 a foot. There are a few free docks. There are a few $1 a foot marinas. But my advice is plan on 2 nights a week at $2 a foot. And then I strongly recommend that you blow that budget and go to the marinas more often than not. After all, yes, you're looking forward to getting to the tropical blue turquoise waters of the Keys and the Bahamas, but you're missing so much if you just rush through it. So stop and enjoy the different towns along the way.
Yeah, and along that line, you mentioned something when we were speaking earlier called the ICW hunch, and how that is something you do not want to get.
Oh, my goodness. Why did you bring that up? Yeah, this happened to us the first time south. Now, in my defense, I will say that our first time south, we actually were co-leaders for the Sail Magazine rally down the ICW. So we were guiding 20 boats. But what happens is, and it happened to me, and it will happen to everybody if you're not careful, is you start the day and you're taking a beautiful sunrise picture. It's called a COD picture, crack of dawn picture. Doing that a lot. And you'll go to the end of the day and catch the sunset as the anchor's going down. And you do this day after day, and it wears you out. Because as soon as an anchor goes down, then you got to figure out what the plan is for tomorrow. and what's the weather going to do when you get up in the morning and you get the anchor on deck and you're watching a depth finder, using your binoculars to see the next mark, looking at the chart plotter, watching behind for a boat overtaking you, and you start getting tense and you start grabbing the steering wheel tighter and tighter and you hunch right over it and you're just not having any fun. And on our first trips out, some more experienced cruisers who were a week ahead of us could hear it in my voice. And they just said, Tom, when you and Christina get to Cumberland Island, come over here and anchor next to us and come over and have a drink. That was the best advice. And from that, I learned to slow down. Don't try and make it 8, 9, 10-hour days, day after day after day. You won't have any fun, and you're going to miss all the nice parts of the ICW.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. So how long, when you're traveling down the ICW, how far out should you be planning ahead? Like, how far out should you be booking marinas, would you say?
Well, okay, great question. And the depending on your draft, you need to be looking at the tide in certain trouble spots, which are well known. And that is something that you might want to plan out 6 months in advance, so that you know that there are certain places that you want to hit. The tide is on a 6-hour cycle. So there's 1 week the tide is low midday, and next week it's high midday. So it's nice to be able to plan when it's low midday, that those are the days you're getting fuel and doing laundry and doing your sightseeing. So you can start planning months in advance. But once you're underway, you're always got an eye on the weather, as you pointed out. So the weather forecasting is getting really, really good. But you probably need to be looking a week ahead in the big picture in case there's a tropical disturbance coming. But certainly 3 days ahead, absolutely. And for Christina and me, we have found there's a couple of places that are good stopping points. And if we see some bad weather coming, we will go to one of these towns. We were in Brunswick this spring, and we were commenting that why is it always windy and cold and gray when we're in Brunswick? And then we realized it's because that's when we plan to be in Brunswick. If the weather's nasty, it's a nice town with things to do and good shopping. So you need to be planning for that. Now, when you're making reservations, even though it seems like everybody is going south at the same time, you'll actually find that there are days you only see 1 or 2 other boats. It's not that crowded. The marinas do get crowded, so you want to call a few days ahead and say that you're coming. And I recommend you call every day and reconfirm. We've never had any trouble. But the most important thing, if the day you're due in, you're really flying and you want to go further, call the marina and say, hey, we're busy, we're doing fine, we're gonna pass. Just let them know, because they can fill that slip with somebody else in a heartbeat. And by the same token, you pull into a marina for 2 days of bad weather and it turns into 3 and you don't want to leave, they're not going to ask you to leave because they know that the boat that was coming in tonight isn't leaving the previous marina anyway. So it's really not a big worry, but you do want to plan this 3 days in advance.
And do you have any recommendations, just what time of day people should be arriving at a marina just to really get the most out of it?
Well, that's a very good point. If you arrive at the marina at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're going to have to wait to get fuel. You're going to have to wait to get to pump out. You're going to get into a slip, and it's going to be getting dark, and you're rushing up to find that all the washing machines are busy, and the loaner car is out. So the cool trick for managing the ICW is to stop just short of that marina, 10 miles or so, anchor, have a nice night, and then pull into the marina at 9:30 in the morning, because all the other ICW cruisers have left at the crack of dawn. So their slip is open. When you go in there at 9 o'clock in the morning, you can get your fuel, you can get your pump out, get into your slip, and the washing machines are open. The loaner car is available. You get all your stuff done during the day, and then in the evening when everybody else is rushing in and trying to get stuff done because they came in late, you go off and you have a nice dinner, you have a nice walk in town, and you come back to your boat, everything's done, you're rested, and in the morning at crack of dawn you get up and you've had a day off.
Yeah. Wow,
And you paid for the same amount of time as the person who came in at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
exactly. So you have described the ICW as a little bit of a 4-dimensional chess game. Could you tell us about those 4 points?
Sure. I love the ICW because you always have to watch where you are. North-south, that's your y-axis.
Mm-hmm.
East-west, that's your x-axis. Where are you? But you also have to watch your vertical axis because you need to make sure you have enough tide to get over the shallow spots, and you have to make sure that the water is low enough you can get under a bridge. So those are three of the dimensions, but time is the 4th dimension. And you really do need to manage time. There are some bridges that open on a schedule. There are some shallow spots you can't cross until a certain time. So it's a 4-dimensional chess game, and you're playing with all these different factors, and it can be a lot of fun. I find it to be a challenge, but it's a fun challenge.
And how many times have you gone down the ICW?
It's an odd number, so I think it's 13 now. And I say that because I've done delivery, so that changes the number. But this boat, I believe, we've done it 13 times. So it will be 14 when we got back to Maryland this summer, which we might not do.
Mm-hmm. So you definitely have a lot of experience on the ICW. So I know this might be hard to pick just a couple of favorite spots. But could you tell us about some of the highlights as you make your way south?
Sure. That's a great question. And I want to start with mile 0. Chris just had a picture of that red 36 in Portsmouth. When you start the ICW, your very first day, you have a choice. There are 2 routes. Route 1, as they call it, is the Virginia Cut, or the Albemarle and Chesapeake Canal. And it goes over to Coinjock, North Carolina, and then on down into Albemarle Sound. That route is quicker. It's got a few bridges, but it's quicker, and everybody stops and has prime rib at Coinjock. Come on, if you're going to go down the ICW, you don't get a Coinjock T-shirt. You can't prove you've been there, right? So that is a great route, and we happen to think that the prime rib's pretty good. But the other option is to go Route 2, which is the Dismal Swamp Canal. I think Chris can find a picture of the Dismal Swamp Canal. Now, either one of these routes, you're going to go through a lock, okay? This picture Chris put up is the South Mills Lock going down at the far end. You're going to get to go through a lock, and in fact, if you take the Dismal Swamp, you'll go through 2. The Dismal Swamp is a spectacular cruise. I would say don't go down the Dismal Swamp if you're over 5 or 5.5 feet of draft. It's a bit shallow. The Corps of Engineers does a good job of getting the logs out of it. But, boats have been known to bump a log on the bottom. Halfway down, just after you get into North Carolina, the North Carolina Visitor Center is the only visitor center in the world that is a welcome center on a highway and a waterway. And the crew that manages it love their boaters. It's a great stop. There's a little bridge that goes across the ICW where there's a park and you can walk. So I would say that at least one leg of your round trip to south, you should go through the Dismal Swamp. But once you get out of the Dismal Swamp, both routes will come together at the Alligator River. And the Alligator River leads to the Alligator Pungo Canal, which is the only place on the ICW where cell service is terrible or non-existent. When you come out of the Alligator River, the Alligator Pungo Canal, you'll be in the town of Bellhaven. Tiny little town, very friendly town, with the best restaurant on the ICW, which is called Spoon River Artworks. Absolutely a must-see stop. Once you get past there, you're going to head on down to Oriental. Now, let me also mention that when you're stopping at these different towns, you can dinghy in to go to the restaurants. You don't have to go to marinas. But all these towns have grocery stores and or loaner cars and or you can walk. I just mention that because you don't have to be really concerned. You don't have to pack your boat for an Atlantic crossing. You're never going to be more than 2 days away from a fresh bottle of milk. So once you leave there, you'll go to Oriental. Everybody goes to Oriental and has coffee at the Bean. From there, you go down to Moorhaven and Beaufort, North Carolina. Beaufort's a great little town. Current rips through there, so whether you're anchoring or going to the marina, you may want to time your arrival so you're not hitting that dock at maximum current. They used to have a loaner car. It was called the Purple Beast. I don't know. It's been a couple of years since we've stopped there. But they had a loaner car, so you get to the grocery store. The museum there is all about Blackbeard. It's great. It's a very walkable town. So from there, you're going to be heading on down to, from there, we usually go to Swansboro. You could easily get from there to Myrtle Beach in a long day. We stop in Swansboro, another tiny little town, cute little town, nice restaurants. It's immediately on the ICW, making a very convenient stop. And from there, everybody likes to go to, not Myrtle Beach, Wrightsville Beach. Wrightsville Beach is a party town. Everybody's heard of it. I can't tell you much about it because it's a place we generally skip right over because we want to go to Carolina Beach. In Carolina Beach, I do recommend they have a very protected anchorage, which is an anchorage and their moorings. There's a dinghy dock. There may be two. Hurricane Matthew destroyed one end of the harbor, and that dinghy dock was taken out. And if Tom loves it so much, why doesn't Tom know the answer to this? It's because Tom no longer goes to that anchorage. Here's the secret. I'm telling you, if you draw 5 feet or less, you've got to do this. You go through Snow's Cut into the Cape Fear River, and immediately on the left is Carolina Beach State Park. Beautiful little keyhole marina. And they have miles of trails through huge sand dunes that are now overgrown with trees. They're just lovely to walk through. You can walk to a grocery store. And it is the only place in the world where you can see Venus flytraps in the wild.
Wow.
It is a cool little place. It is just before the town of Southport. I think it's 12 miles from Southport. And Southport is a town that I strongly encourage people to visit. Very scenic, a couple of nice museums. It is one town that does not have a convenient grocery store, but it's a great little stop as well. From there, Southport, from Southport, you have to time your departure because there are two of the so-called trouble spots in your first couple of hours. That would be Lockwood's Folly and Charlotte Inlet. They are perfectly manageable, but you need to watch the tide and the current. So sometimes you might want to stay at Carolina Beach for a couple of days, or Southport a couple of days, or both a couple of days to let the tide get in sync with you. Once you're through there, you're into South Carolina and Myrtle Beach very quickly. There are many great marinas in Myrtle Beach. It's a lot of fun. We've stayed at several. Our preference is to go right through Myrtle Beach, though, to the head of the Waccamaw River, and there is a small keyhole marina called Osprey. Nicest staff on the ICW. The nicest swag bag on the ICW. A great little stop. And from there, you're going to go down the Waccamaw River, which is a cypress tree swamp like the Pocomoke River on the eastern shore. It is beautiful, and there's lots of oxbows where you can pull in and anchor. And, I mean, the nights there are black. There's no lights around. It's beautiful. And you're starting to get south by then. You're starting to pick up some slightly warmer weather. So you can usually anchor very comfortably. From there, depending on if you're following my advice and going slow, you'll want to go to Georgetown In Georgetown, South Carolina, you can walk to a grocery store. Georgetown, South Carolina has beautiful colonial homes, and it's got the Rice Museum. Yes, that's right. RICE, the Rice Museum. And it's fascinating. Nobody who I have sent there has ever left and not said they were glad that they listened to what we advised. It's about the history and the culture of rice and rice plantations in South Carolina. Rice was gold back then. The docent who led us was the granddaughter of a slave who worked there. Anyway, highly recommend that. After that, the little town of McClellanville. Easy to pass by, but don't. Beautiful little shrimping village. You want to get fresh shrimp, they've got a great store. The marina can only take 4 or 5 boats, so you want to call a few nights ahead. The live oak are just stunning. They're huge, and there's one live oak, the deerhead oak, that's documented at over 1,200 years old. So we always stop at McClellanville, and usually we met so many people going south or north with us, and we told them about this, that we generally arrive with 2 or 3 other boats, and if we show up on our own with nobody, the marina crew looks at us and says, what's wrong? Where are you? So it's a great little town. And it's a nice place to stage to get to Charleston. I strongly recommend a stop in Charleston for 2 or 3 or 4 days. There's so much to see and do. The Mega Dock is at downtown Charleston, is a great marina, but it's often full. But Patriots Point is it's just across the river. They have a shuttle that goes back and forth, both a vehicular shuttle and a little ferry. So it's just as good as being in the city marina. But there's a lot to see and do. We love Charleston. And from Charleston, you want to stage for the Elliott Cut. Elliott Cut is one of the few places on the ICW where the current really does run at 4 knots, even 5 knots. And it's a place you don't want to have to transit at maximum current. However, once you pull out of Charleston and you clear Elliott Cut, you can usually make Beaufort, South Carolina in a day. Long day for a 5-knot boat, a short day for a 10-knot boat. Beaufort is, I think Chris has some pictures of Beaufort. It's spectacular colonial town. We love to take some of the tours. There's a movie tour. A lot of movies have been filmed there. There's a history tour. All the marinas have had in the past loaner cars. Easy town to get provisions in, and a great place to wait out any inclement weather. You're right on the ICW. You don't have to go up a creek. Let's see. After leaving Beaufort, the next stop is Savannah. That's a pretty long run. You'll probably end up stopping before you get there. But you can make it in a day. When you get to Savannah, it's a beautiful city. There's no marine facilities in the city itself. So you'll either stop in Thunderbolt, which has a couple of marinas, or Isle of Hope. And Chris has a picture there of Isle of Hope at sunrise. Isle of Hope is a tiny little town. The marina has 2 loaner cars. The homes are immaculate. They're small, and every one of them is got a huge live oak with Spanish moss hanging over it. It's a very pretty town, and I did a delivery through there at Christmas time a few years back, and everything was lit up. It was spectacular. So I do recommend, if you can, that you stop at Savannah. Our preference is to go to Isle of Hope. Whether you go to Thunderbolt, Isle of Hope, the next trouble spot is called Hell Gate. Hell Gate was dredged this year, so for the next few years, it won't be a trouble spot, but just keep in mind that there is a place called Hell Gate that you at least want to be cognizant of the tide and current. Okay, from Savannah, the next you're gonna be heading into Georgia shortly. You're in Georgia, excuse me. We like to go to Sapelo Island. There is one real challenging place on the ICW that hasn't been dredged, which is Little Mud River. Sapelo Island is a very remote, undeveloped island, and it's got a dinghy dock so you can walk around the island. It's a great anchorage, and it's right next to the beginning of this trouble spot. You can, if you do have to use the tide to get through that trouble spot because it is only 4.5 feet at low tide. So we like to stop there, and from there we head down to Brunswick, Georgia, which I told you is a place where it's always rainy and windy and cold, because that's why we go there. If it's nice weather, we will stop at, usually we'll stop at Jekyll Island. Jekyll Island is just past there. Jekyll Island's going to be a $3 a foot marina stay, but it's a beautiful island, and they have a, they have a loaner golf cart, and you can get provisions, you can get anything you need. There's a turtle restoration rehabilitation facility there that's part of the University of Georgia, which is an interesting visit. Excuse me. From there, you're not far from Cumberland Island. Cumberland Island, Georgia is one of the prettiest spots on the East Coast. I think Chris has some pictures of it. To the old mansion Dungeness. It's got all the history is available on your cell phone as you walk around the property and the grounds, and they'll tell you the history of it. It was a Carnegie mansion that was burned by some poachers, unfortunately, and never rebuilt. But it's a great stop. At the other end, middle of the island, where this next picture is called Sea Camp, and you can walk across to the ocean. When you're anchored here, you can hear the ocean surf crashing on the other side of the island. It's a great way to go to sleep. But you cross the island, and it's a live oak forest with these overarching branches, and it's like with Spanish moss hanging down. It's like being in a cathedral. It is absolutely stunning. And then you can get out to the Atlantic beach and go shelling. It's a great place to find olives, off the shell, sand dollars. Watch out for the wild horses. No, there are wild horses. You don't have to watch out for them. They have bikes you can rent, and you can ride to different parts of the island. We like to actually use our dinghy for exploring. If your dinghy will get up on plane, you can run up to Plum Orchard at the other end of the island, where there's another huge Carnegie mansion. This one is still intact. The tour is very interesting, and the route up there through Brick Hill River is beautiful. Oh, I'm rushing here. Okay, so from Cumberland Island, you'll probably want to stop at Fernandina Beach. It's only 5 or 6 miles. It's a first town in Florida. Very cute, a very attractive town with beautiful homes, beautiful churches, nice restaurants. There's a fish market right there at the landing if you want to get some shrimp or other fish. We have gone to a couple of different museums there. You can go out to Fort Clinch. Certainly a very, very popular stop. From Fernandina, we usually beat feet and go all the way to St. Augustine in one day. It's a long day. St. Augustine is a must stop in our opinion. There are marinas and there are moorings. There's no convenient place to anchor. There are a few places to anchor, but they can be a little bit rough. So you'll want to take a mooring. The mooring comes with launch service, but there's a dinghy dock. There's a winery tour. There's a distillery tour. There are history tours. They have a hop-on, hop-off bus, which is great fun to see lots of different places, like the Fountain of Youth. Obviously, it works. Obviously, I've been there. The picture Chris is showing now is Flagler College, which was the Flagler Hotel. And the history of this building, this facility, is interesting and worth a tour. you really, if you go to St. Augustine, plan for 2 days, but you'll probably stay 3 or 4. Some people will stay a month. It's a great, great town. During Christmas season, they have lights on all the trees, millions of lights. It's spectacular. Leaving St. Augustine, now you're well into Florida. We will usually go a half day downriver to Marineland Marina at Matanzas Inlet. Marineland is another University of Georgia marine biology facility in this case, and I believe turtles as well. And Marineland itself is a Dalton encounter facility that's been there since the 1950s. And that the TV show Sea Hunt was filmed there. The dolphin scenes were filmed there. You can swim with the dolphins. You can walk on the beach. They've got miles of trails, and they may or may not have a loner carp that was taken out by a hurricane. And I haven't been there to check. We've also found very friendly liveaboard cruisers there who've given us a ride down to Publix as well. So I would recommend Marineland, absolutely. From there, you're in the easy part of Florida. As they say, you just got to keep it between the red and green sticks and don't hit anything. Florida is very easy to navigate. There are no real trouble spots from here south. Matanzas Inlet crossing has just been dredged. It's the last real trouble spot. When you get to around Fort Pierce, you may want to consider popping out in the ocean and running down along the coast and back in, only because there are a lot of bridges, and they're all timed. So you can't just get to a bridge and ask it to open. It only opens on the hour or the half hour, or some of them are on 10 minutes past the hour and 10 minutes past the half hour. It's not that part of it's not a great time to be in the Intracoastal. But if the weather's crappy, that's the time to run down the inside. But usually the coast is clear and you can run down the outside.
Awesome.
That's my quick run down the ICW, and I haven't touched on half the nice spots.
No, that was great and super informative. And we actually have a couple questions that came in.
Sure.
Let's see. Okay. Sorry.
I keep saying something about a guide for the ICW.
Oh, yeah. Do you have a recommended cruising guide?
There are 2 cruising guides that are very good. One is Waterway Guide. Waterway Guide has done a lot to update their guide, and they have a very good editor who's right on top of it, who goes up and down the ICW every year. Its only drawback is that it has to be printed, and so by sometime around this time of year, it's off to the printer, and any changes over the summer won't be there. They will be there electronically, excuse me. And that's one of the nice things about Waterway Guide is most of the guide is also on their website. The other guide is called Cruising the ICW with Bob 423. Bob and Ann Schurer have done the ICW 19 maybe 20 trips.
Wow.
And Bob has written a very comprehensive guide. Most years he sends it to me to edit it because he and I have known each other a long time. What Bob does, which is very handy, is he also has his own website where he makes available to anybody who wants them his tracks and his routes as GPX files. And you can download them into your tablet navigation system. This is very, very handy. One of the sort of common misperceptions about the ICW is, well, this is magenta line you can follow from the Chesapeake all the way to Florida. Well, you can, but it was drawn in 1913. So the chart plotters weren't real accurate back then, right? So the people try to use it as a route, and it gets them into trouble because it stops in places where NOAA doesn't know where to put it, or the channel moves and the markers move, but NOAA doesn't move it because it was never meant to be a chart plotter route. you would have your chart next to you and you're driving down the waterway and you would say, okay, when I get the red 36, then I'm supposed to turn into the next creek. When I go up that creek and a green 12, I turn into a canal that'll dump me into another creek. And so you just use it as a guideway that you follow visually. It was not meant to be a route. Well, people started following it as a route and started running aground, and it became a problem. So what Bob does is all of his track, you can literally get on his track in the Chesapeake and follow an exact GPS track that he made within the, in some cases within the last month, but within the last 6 months. And you can follow it all the way to Florida. You don't have to do any navigating yourself. Of course, that track is only so wide, and if you want to go to some town or something, you've got to know how to navigate. So what I say is Bob's guide and Bob's website gives you, sorry, my phone's ringing, gives you a blue line to follow, and the blue line is intended to be followed. It's reliable.
Awesome. Okay, and we have this this next question. Do you use tablet navigation in addition to the ship's chart plotter?
No. I use tablet navigation. And in addition, I have a chart plotter. These days, tablet navigation has gotten so good. There are such great abilities to create routes and share routes that it's really, I think, our primary now. My history is way back in the 60s with paper and hand-bearing compasses and parallel rules. I know how to do all that. We switched to PC navigation 20 years ago, and I haven't used paper since. But I tell you, the tablet navigation it's not the future, it's the present. It's wonderful. So yeah, you should have a chart plotter. But that brings up a good point, which is whether you're using a chart plotter or a PC or a tablet, you must update your charts, which is one reason you can't use paper. See, NOAA and the Coast Guard are moving buoys all the time as conditions change. You can't keep track of that on paper. If you take all the charts between Chesapeake and Key West, you'll need 220 charts. Now, obviously, you can't buy with some strip charts, and maybe you can get that number down to 40 or 50. But still, how do you maintain 40 or 50 charts when you have to read the Notice of Mariners in 2 different Coast Guard districts every week? With electronic charting, you just touch the iPad and it updates all your charts. So absolutely, tablets are the way to go.
Awesome. Okay, so this one's a little bit of a longer question. So Mike Edict is asking, is there a rule of thumb of max speed, or have you found speed limit zones along the ICW?
Okay, very good question. Try not to sound like a curmudgeon. Okay, it's a very good question. There are places where the state puts up no wake signs or speed limit signs, and those places you have to follow. But you will be passing by miles of private docks with people getting in and out of boats, and people fishing, and people on stand-up paddle boards, and people kayaking, and it may not say no wake. But to be considerate of others, you have to slow down and go slowly through these areas. So, yeah, there's a lot of areas which have speed limits. There's no guide to that. What's interesting is the NAVIONICS the NAVIONICS tablet will call it up when there are speed limits. It lets you know right on the tablet. But I've done parts of the ICW at 25 knots, throwing a 15 or 16 foot wake. That's a joke, but I did a delivery on a boat that I swear they could have had a surfing championship on our wake. And we slowed down every time we saw paddle boarders or kayakers, even if there was no speed limit. So the truth is, you can go as fast as you want. You will see a lot of places where homeowners have put up their own signs that look a lot like the official signs, but they aren't. But it's not about whether it's official or not. It's about if all the boats you're going by are up on lifts, blow on by. That's great. But if people are getting in and out of boats, you need to slow down and be considerate of others. The net is you're going to have to slow down for bridges. You're going to have to slow down for other traffic. So if you're in a hurry, pop out the inlet and scoot down the coast. That's the way to go.
Awesome. And let's see, Daren has a question about NAVIONICS and how accurate it is.
Well, that's a great question, and I don't know how to answer because it isn't precise enough, and I know Daren. So let me put it this way. NAVIONICS has, when you buy their tablet navigation, it comes with 3 different charting systems. And we also have a NAVIONICS chart chip in our PC, in our chart plotter. But they have 3 different charting systems, which is really cool. One is just the government charts. So you've got the latest government chart for where you're going. Then they have one that they call the NAVIONICS chart, which is where they've added their own special sauce to the government chart and put in some useful information that's not available from NOAA. But most importantly, they have crowdsourced depth information on charts called sonar charts. And the sonar charts are, in my opinion, an essential tool for doing the ICW. Are they perfect? No. Is NOAA perfect? No. Are the sonar charts more accurate than NOAA? Yes, they are. So it is one of the tools that I think you must have is NAVIONICS on the tablet with the sonar charts.
Chris, could you pull up the question from Michael? Do you see that one? So Michael was asking if you know roughly how long it takes to get from Annapolis to Norfolk and then Norfolk to New Bern.
What kind of boat and what kind of, is it a powerboat?
A powerboat.
Okay. From Annapolis to Norfolk is about 116 miles, if I recall. So at 25 knots, it's 5 hours. Yeah, and good weather.
Yeah.
At our speed, it's 3 days. So we go 7 months. New Bern is a lovely stop. Let's see. Because you're going to be going through some canals, you probably would allow 2 days to get to New Bern. Much of it is high speed, but you're going to have to go through the Virginia Canal, and let's see. There, you'll probably make that. You could probably make that in a day. I don't know the mileage off the top of my head. It's another 3-day trip for us, so I would say, yeah, that's probably a 1-day trip in a quick powerboat.
Awesome. Okay, well, it looks like those are our questions for now. And, everyone who's watching, thank you so much for the great questions. So, Tom, I wanted to just leave us with one question for you. And could you tell us just your favorite thing about the cruising lifestyle and cruising the ICW?
Wow.
I know that's a loaded one.
It's a great question, and the answer is very long. But here's the thing. You wake up almost every day in a new town with new things to see, and there's all sorts of wildlife, and there's new experiences, and you're moving with the seasons, so you're getting into warmer weather, and then you're getting back into cooler weather. It's lovely. All of that is great. The cool thing is you meet these great people. When you're at the Dismal Swamp Visitor Center, you're going to be there with 20 other boats who are all going down, and you're going to meet people who say, we're going to stop at this marina, and we went last year, and this is why we like it. So you learn something, all right? And so maybe you follow them to there, and then the next day you go off somewhere else. And then 2 weeks later, you're at Osprey Marina in North Carolina, and there they are. Mm-hmm. You get to see the same people. And going up in the spring, you might be surprised that you see some of the same people again. So I love the fact that it's a huge community. You have an immediate connection with everybody because everybody's trying to figure out what's the weather tomorrow, how far are you going. Everybody shares the information on the dock. And, if you're social, you may go out to dinner with people. You may have people aboard for cocktails. So I think that the whole sort of social environment of it is exceptionally an exceptional part of the trip.
Awesome. Well, Tom, we can't thank you enough for coming on to talk to us. I know you've already made me want to do the ICW, and I'm sure so many people watching, it's on their bucket list as well. So we can't thank you enough. And
it's absolutely been my pleasure. And if people want to write into you guys and ask questions, I'll do my best to answer them individually.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to pipe. We had a special guest star there with Kaylee's cat. I just wanted to also thank you, Tom. It definitely is on the bucket list, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Take your time going down there and just enjoy it, because I know that's just part of what I've heard is the attraction to it is it's not about take the cliche. It's not the destination. It's the journey. So
you're absolutely right. And we've made it 13 times, and we're finding new places to go, new things to see, having new experiences. It's terrific.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again. We both appreciate it very much. And we'll kind of go back through some of if there's any questions we didn't get to on Facebook, we'll try and go back through there and get them answered as well. But I also just wanted to thank everybody at home for tuning in here to Prop Talk Live. We will do this. We do this every Wednesday now at 5 o'clock. And our next topic is to be determined, if I'm not, correct. But please just like us on Facebook and follow us, and we'll be able to let you know who's or what topic we're going to be covering next. Real quick, I'm just going to hide you guys real fast so I can just say thank you very much to, again, our sponsors. We've both, if I can find their slide. Oh, well. Thank you, Pocket Yacht, for sponsoring us and making this available. It's important for me to mention that if you don't know, Prop Talk is a free magazine, and we make all of our revenue from advertisers, and we need their support. So it's really special when somebody like Pocket Yacht helps us out and is supporting us, because we can't bring you good content like this unless we have the support of our advertisers. So stop in, see Pocket Yacht. Also read the current edition of Prop Talk, which has that review of the new Ranger tug. And tune in next time. And thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there. Oh, breaking news real quick. For those of you that are in Maryland, we did see that Governor Hogan has actually lifted the stay-at-home order starting on Friday. So I'm hoping that doesn't mean I have to leave my living room next week, but we'll see. So anyway, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.